What's up, self-healers? Lisa Lightfeather here. Welcome to my channel, Closing the Gap. Make a conscious effort to meet you where you're at on your healing and your spiritual journey. Today, I want to come on and speak on the topic of the dark empath. A lot of people assume that the dark empath is an empath who has taken all they can take and they finally just go into their shadow side and they just become dark in defense of the narcissist. Well, this is not necessarily factual, right? So a dark empath is actually 9 times out of 10 a narcissist themselves. The reason I say this is because what the dark empath does is that they learn to mimic empathy. They recognize empathy. They can understand what empathy is. Yeah. So let's just use this example, like a narcissist goes to a funeral and everybody in the funeral is crying. And the narcissist looks around and thinks, oh, they must be faking, because what is there to cry about? Like, they don't get it. They don't get the emotion that's attached to someone's loved one transitioning and them, grieving. They don't get that. But a dark empath gets that. Like, they will go to a funeral and they will cry. Right? They'll show emotion and they'll show empathy, and they mirror empathy, right? They can produce tears. They just mirror empathy. And so what happens is that they mirror the empathy. They see someone hurting and they comfort that person and they get that person comfortable and they get their most intimate details, right? Because you're grieving about something, or you're upset about something, or you're sad about something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a funeral. It could be somebody at work. Like, say, for example, you're working with someone and they say, hey, could you take my shift for me? My children are going through some problems, and they make up some sob story about their children. And then the coworker says, I'm kind of pressed for time, but I'll take your shift so you can go take care of your children. And so they will pretend to be, the dark empath can pretend to be sad and upset and concerned about the children. And then as soon as the coworker takes the shift, the dark empath is on the plane to Vegas. And so they can use empathy to manipulate situations and get their way. They can also use empathy in times of, like, if someone is grieving, they can comfort them in their grieving and then find out certain details about what the person is going through. Then later on, they come back and they use those details against that person. Right? A dark empath can, they mirror you, and then they get you to, they're really good at getting you to open up, because they mirror the energy of empathy so well. They get other people to open up, and when they open up, then the dark empath turns around and uses what the other people shared with them against them somewhere along the line. They just gather information and put it in their tool bag so that when the appropriate time comes, they pull that out, and then they use it against the empath. All right. So dark empathy is not what most people think it is. They think that it's the empath being pushed to the limit, and then they finally just turn on the narcissist, and now the empath is using darkness to combat the narcissist. It's not that. It's a tool that narcissists use. They combined it with the cluster B personality, right? And then they use it to gain what they want to gain. And so, like, a dark empath might say, my lights are about to get cut off, my water is getting turned off, and they can produce tears like that, on the spot tears. My water's getting cut off, and my children aren't going to have any food. Some dark empath is saying this to someone, and then they say, oh, well, let me help you. Let me help you here. How much money do you need? Or how can I be of assistance? How much food do you need? And then the dark empath gets what they want. They get the money, and they don't go home and buy any food. They probably don't even have that issue. They probably don't even have children. So the dark empath is very manipulative. And so They basically just find out your weaknesses. They'll cry with you. They'll grieve with you. They will hold you while you cry. And the whole time they're plotting against you to get what they want, right? So they basically use your weaknesses to come up. Yeah. So that's what a dark empath really is. It's someone who's very manipulative, and they can mimic emotions. So there you have it. Like a lot of times people think that narcissists do not have emotions. They don't have, and most of them don't. They don't have the capacity to feel emotion. But the dark empath does. So the trick is that there are a lot of people who are not necessarily dark empaths, right? They just have this ego dynamic going on where they have this shadow where they will use what people say to them later on in a conversation, right? And so a lot of people do that, and they're not necessarily dark empaths. They're just tactless. They don't have the ability to be, they don't have any integrity when it comes to them being wounded or them being hurt. And then later on they'll say stuff like, well, that time that happened to you before, you know, they'll do something to the empath. Then when the empath says, why'd you do that to me? They will say, well, remember 2 years ago, you told me somebody did that to you and you didn't mind it then. You know, they'll do stuff like that. And so that doesn't necessarily make a dark empath. It just makes a person who is just defending their ego. They've been hurt. And so they know something about the empath. And so then they throw it back in their face. Like people will throw stuff back in your face 2 years later, a year later, 6 months later. But the dark empath is usually working in the moment, time now, right? They want something from you right now. And so they'll turn on the waterworks. They'll turn on the tears. They'll turn on the empathy. They'll mirror you because their goal is to get something right there in the short distance time. Someone who throws something in your face 6 months later or a year later, their ego is probably bruised and they're just being tactless. They're just, you know, they want to hurt you because they perceive that you hurt them. So sometimes we have to distinguish between just human nature and malice, right? So the dark empath, that is strictly malice. They want what they want in the moment. They're not playing the long game. They're playing the short game. They want what they want right now. Your family member just passed away and they know that you have a life insurance check or something like that. And they will empathize with you and cry with you and, oh my goodness. And then, you know, 2 days later, hey, can I borrow $200? They're nasty. So you want to be able to sell. You don't want to just go around calling someone a dark empath because they've been tactless and threw something in your face later on that you shared with them 6 months ago, right? So the dark empath is quite dangerous because a lot of people don't see them coming. But you will quickly see, if it's a dark empath in your family, you'll quickly see a pattern of behavior. But if it's a dark empath in a relationship or something like that you don't realize they're a narcissist, they can be quite dangerous because the empath will have empathy. They will say, oh, this person has empathy with me. Oh, they feel me. They get me. They see me. They see you, but they see you with a motive, right? So being able to read energy is good, yeah. But the dark empath, once they get you once, they won't get you again because you're like, whoa, what just happened? You know what I mean? And sometimes with another sign that you'll know it's a dark empath is if they're giving you a sob story and then you start empathizing with them, you're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened. And you start showing emotion and they get a little smirk on their face like, gotcha. It's quick. So one good way to read when someone's intentions are nasty towards you are micro expressions. You got to catch those micro expressions. The glaze over the eyes, the smirk. Yeah. So a dark empath will have that. Like as soon as you start empathizing with a dark empath, they come to you with something horribly sad and their motive is to manipulate you because they want something from you. And when you start crying or feeling sorry for them or saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to you, and they get that little smirk and their eyes gloss over, you're dealing with the dark empath. So if you've seen this, you know it and you won't forget it. But micro expressions are important to determine a person's real motives, because they don't have control over micro expressions, right? That real true feeling, like when someone is jealous of you and you see that micro expression of them being jealous of you, you catch it. You're like, oh, they're jealous, because they didn't say anything, but you caught the micro expression of them being jealous of you. The same thing with the dark empath. Once they see that your tears are pouring and you're being relatable to them, and you're not suspecting them of being malice in any way, you're just having empathy for their emotions, they will get that. Once they see those tears start flowing, they get that smirk like, gotcha. Right. That's what they do. So that's the difference between an empath and a dark empath. People assume that the dark empath is something that's good, like the empath all of a sudden starts standing up for themselves. No, that's a healed empath, right? A dark empath is very malice, manipulative, controlling, and they will do anything to get what they want. Yeah? Well, that's all I have for you today here on Closing the Gap. We'll make a conscious effort to meet you where you're at on your healing, your spiritual journey. If you like my content, please don't forget to like, subscribe, maybe drop a comment. And if you're really feeling my vibe, don't forget to hit the bell notification so that you know the next time that I upload. It's time for the empath, the healed empath, to stand in their true power, to speak their truth, and to see through the narcissistic demon that has been running rampant through the empath community for decades. We'll see you next time here on Closing the Gap. Y'all have a good day.